Bombshell out of Cleveland. Shadur Sanders has officially demanded a trade. And guess who's already desperate to get him? The Cincinnati Bengals, who see Sanders as the perfect answer after Joe Burrow's injury. The Browns' locker room is in chaos, and the NFL is bracing for one of the most shocking QB moves in years.
What's going on, YouTube? This is Mad Dog TV coming back with breaking news. Adam Schefter, NFL insider, just reported that the Cincinnati Bengals star quarterback Joe Burrow will need toe surgery that will sideline him for a minimum of 3 months. Bengal fans are calling for Shadur Sanders after the Bengals search for another quarterback. We're going to talk about that in this video.
Obviously, I would never fault a father for believing in his own son. And look, it's entirely possible that Deion Sanders knows something that I don't. It's entirely possible that Daddy Deion has access to inside information. Maybe he is talking about Shadur Sanders.
The Cincinnati Bengals are in full panic mode. Joe Burrow just went down with a devastating injury that's going to sideline him for at least 3 months. And guess who fans are screaming for? Shadur Sanders. Yeah, you heard that right. The Browns' rookie phenom that everyone said wasn't NFL ready. But here's where it gets crazy. This might be the most obvious move in NFL history. Or it could expose the biggest collusion we've ever seen in professional football. Bengals fans are flooding social media, analysts are connecting the dots, and there's one name that keeps coming up over and over again. So buckle up, because what I'm about to break down is going to blow your mind about why Shadur to Cincinnati isn't just possible. It's necessary.
Push would be December 15th and very well could be into the new year before he's ready again. Let's see if the Bengals and Jake Browning, their new quarterback, can keep them afloat until then. But Joe Burrow went down yesterday. You knew it had to be serious. He's going to have surgery as soon as the swelling in that toe goes down, and he's going to be sidelined for a minimum of 3 months. The Bengals already have been calling around to add another quarterback. That's from a depth standpoint. But the fact of the matter is Jake Browning will be the guy. He is expected to be the guy. And Joe Burrow has taken so much punishment there in Cincinnati from the time that he arrived there in 2020. You put up the pass rush win rate right there, where the Bengals have ranked in the league, and you see those numbers. That is rough for a quarterback to absorb all those hits, all those years. And you wonder what type of cumulative effect it will have on Joe Burrow physically and mentally moving forward. So we'll keep an eye on that.
So look, let me paint you the full picture here, because this situation is absolutely wild. Adam Schefter, yeah, the Adam Schefter, NFL's most trusted insider, just dropped a bomb that sent shockwaves through the entire league. Joe Burrow, the franchise quarterback, the guy who was supposed to lead the Bengals back to Super Bowl glory, is going under the knife for turf toe surgery. Now, I know what you're thinking. Turf toe? That doesn't sound that serious. But hold up, because this isn't your average rolled ankle or bruised rib. This is a 3-month minimum recovery. We're talking 12 to 14 weeks before Burrow can even think about stepping back on that field.
Panel members reached out to me a couple of weeks ago, thanked me for linking him up with Sugar Mountain Trading. Woke up one Friday morning with back pain, and he had to drive several hours to a friend's wedding. He applied some CBD lotion from Sugar Mountain Trading. 15 minutes later, his back pain was magically gone. My wife also deals with nagging back pain. Tried over-the-counter stuff, chiropractor. None of that ever seemed to work. Within 5-10 minutes of me applying CBD oil from Sugar Mountain Trading, her pain is gone. I'm telling you, it's damn near magical. Sugar Mountain Trading also offers CBD bar soap that will keep you pain-free and smelling fresh at the same time. Bar soap comes in a variety of scents ranging from lavender all the way to cherry almond. More importantly, all CBD products offered at Sugar Mountain Trading, 100% natural, 100% free of THC. So click the link in the description below. Use my promo code BTL.
A baller you better start calling for Shadur Sanders, because you're not going to get passes like Joe Burrow was getting to you from Jake Browning. You know, that situation is going to be this kind of similar to Tyreek Hill in Miami. You know, Tua is not getting the ball to Tyreek Hill down the field. Shadur Sanders can do that. That's what makes this whole situation confusing. If this is a real legit situation and not NFL collusion, we will see Shadur Sanders with the Cincinnati Bengals. It makes the most sense. He's the best available quarterback that's available. If they go elsewhere and sign another quarterback, that will tell us even further that we are in collusion when it comes to Shadur Sanders, because this is a no-brainer. It makes the most sense to go out there and bring in Shadur Sanders. Not saying start him immediately, make him the backup, because he's going to be there for the entire year, especially with Joe Burrow missing some significant amount of time. But once Jake Browning show you that he can't get it done, bam, you have a first-round talented quarterback, Shadur Sanders, for at least this season, and then we will worry about the years next.
Let that sink in for a second. December 15th is the absolute earliest, best-case scenario that Joe Burrow could return. And realistically, we might not see him until the new year. That means the Bengals are staring down the barrel of potentially an entire season without their franchise quarterback. The same guy who took them to the Super Bowl. The same guy who's been carrying that offense on his back while getting absolutely demolished by opposing defenses year after year. And here's the kicker. Schefter mentioned something in his report that should have every Bengals fan's alarm bells ringing. He talked about the cumulative effect of all those hits Joe Burrow has taken. From 2020 until now, this man has been getting pummeled. The pass rush win rate stats? Absolutely brutal. Cincinnati's offensive line has been ranked near the bottom of the league in protection. And Burrow's been eating sacks like it's his day job. Schefter literally questioned what this will do to Burrow physically and mentally moving forward. That's not just talking about recovery time. That's questioning whether this franchise quarterback can even hold up long-term. Now, here's where things get interesting. Schefter dropped another nugget that most people glossed over. The Bengals are already calling around to add another quarterback. Not just for depth, not just to fill a practice squad spot. They're actively shopping for someone who can actually contribute. Because let's be real, Jake Browning is their current backup. And if you know football, you know that Jake Browning is not the answer. Don't get me wrong, Browning's a professional. He's been in the system. But this is a team that had Super Bowl aspirations just a few weeks ago. You think Jake Browning is going to keep those dreams alive? You think he's going to sling it downfield to Jamar Chase the way Burrow does? Absolutely not. And the Bengals front office knows it. That's why they're making calls. That's why they're exploring options. And that's why Bengals fans are doing something that seemed impossible just a month ago. They're calling for Shadur Sanders. Let me show you what's happening on social media right now, because this is where it gets absolutely crazy. Fans are flooding the comments. Fiat, Bengals should go get Shadur Sanders. Can we get Shadur Sanders to the Bengals? Bengals need to trade for Shadur Sanders. These aren't just random trolls throwing out hot takes. These are real Bengals fans who've watched their team struggle, who've seen quarterbacks come and go, and who recognize talent when they see it. One fan even said, "I'm more surprised the Bengals didn't draft Shadur Sanders." And you know what? That's a fair point. But let's be real. They had Joe Burrow. They didn't need to draft another quarterback. But now everything's changed. Now they're in desperation mode. Now they're realizing that their championship window might be closing faster than they thought, and they need someone who can actually play at a high level. And this is where Shadur Sanders enters the conversation in a major way. Think about this logically for a second. Who's the best available quarterback option right now? Who's sitting on a roster ready to go with legitimate first-round talent? Shadur Sanders, the guy who everyone doubted coming out of college. The guy who people said was only drafted because of his last name. The guy who's been sitting behind Deshaun Watson in Cleveland, waiting for his shot. Well, guess what? His shot might be coming, and it might be in Cincinnati. Here's what makes this situation so perfect, it almost feels scripted. Shadur Sanders can do exactly what the Bengals need. You've got Jamar Chase, one of the most explosive receivers in the NFL, who thrives on deep balls and perfectly placed throws. You think Jake Browning's going to feed him the way he needs to be fed? Not a chance. But Shadur? That man can sling it. He's got the arm talent. He's got the accuracy. He's got the poise in the pocket that you need in today's NFL. Let me paint you a scenario. Imagine you're Jamar Chase right now. You're a veteran, you're a Pro Bowler, you're one of the best at your position. You just watched your quarterback go down for 3 months minimum. You look at the depth chart and see Jake Browning's name next to QB1. What are you thinking? You're thinking about Tyreek Hill in Miami right now. You're thinking about how Tua's inconsistency has limited one of the fastest players in football. You don't want that to be your story. You don't want to waste your prime years catching checkdowns and hoping for the best. If I'm Jamar Chase, I'm picking up the phone right now and calling the front office. I'm telling them, get me Shadur Sanders. Because Chase knows what everyone else seems to be ignoring. Shadur can actually extend plays, make throws under pressure, and get the ball downfield. That's not a knock on Jake Browning. That's just reality. Browning's a game manager at best. Shedur's a playmaker. But here's where this whole situation takes a dark turn. And this is what I really want you to pay attention to because it's crucial. If the Bengals don't make a move for Shadur Sanders, we need to start asking some serious questions. This is the most obvious move in football right now. You've got a team with championship pieces, a generational receiver, a solid defense, and they just lost their quarterback for potentially the entire season. You've got a talented young quarterback sitting on another team's bench who could step in and actually compete. This isn't rocket science. This is football 101. So if Cincinnati goes out and signs some washed-up veteran or trades for a backup-level quarterback from another team or decides to just roll with Jake Browning for the rest of the season, what does that tell us? It tells us that something else is going on. It tells us that maybe, just maybe, there's some kind of unspoken agreement in NFL front offices to keep Shadur Sanders exactly where he is. Now, I'm not saying there's a full-blown conspiracy here, but think about it. Shadur comes from football royalty. His dad is Deion Sanders, one of the most polarizing figures in sports. Shadur's been in the spotlight since high school, and there are people in NFL circles who don't want to see him succeed because of who his father is. That's not speculation. That's just how the politics of professional sports work. If you don't believe me, look at the draft process. Look at how many times analysts questioned Shadur's readiness, despite him putting up incredible numbers in college. So, here's the test. Here's how we'll know if this is real, or if we're living in a world where NFL collusion is actively keeping certain players down. The Cincinnati Bengals need a quarterback. Shadur Sanders is available and is the best talent on the market. If they make this move, it proves the league operates on merit. If they don't make this move, well, then we've got our answer about what's really happening behind closed doors. And let me be crystal clear about something. I'm not saying the Bengals should immediately name Shadur the starter. That would be crazy. He's been with the Browns, he doesn't know the system, and throwing him into the fire week 1 as the starter would be setting him up to fail. But what they should do is bring him in as the backup. Let him learn the playbook. Let him get comfortable with the receivers. And when, not if, but when Jake Browning shows that he can't get it done, you've got a first-round talent sitting right there ready to step in. Think about the timeline here. Joe Burrow's out until at least mid-December, possibly longer. That gives Shadur months to integrate into the offense. That gives him time to build chemistry with Chase, T. Higgins, and the rest of the receiving corps. And when Browning inevitably struggles, because let's be honest, he's going to struggle, you're not scrambling to find a solution. You've already got your guy. This isn't just about this season either. Let's say Shadur comes in, balls out, and shows he can be a legitimate starter in this league. What happens next? Well, now you've got options. Maybe Joe Burrow comes back and reclaims his spot. Maybe Shedeur's play forces a quarterback controversy. Maybe the Bengals decide to trade one of them for assets. Or maybe, and this is the scenario that should terrify every Bengals fan, maybe Joe Burrow's body can't hold up anymore, and Shadur becomes your franchise quarterback moving forward. I know that sounds dramatic, but go back to what Schefter said. The cumulative physical and mental toll on Burrow. This isn't his first major injury. ACL tear in 2020, various other ailments throughout his career. How much more can one body take behind that offensive line? At some point, you have to start planning for the future, and bringing in SHEDEUR Sanders is the smartest insurance policy the Bengals could possibly get. Now, I want you to think about something else. What message does it send to the rest of the league if Cincinnati makes this move? It sends a message that they're serious about winning. It sends a message that they're not going to waste a season hoping and praying that a backup-level quarterback can keep them afloat. It sends a message that they're willing to make bold moves to maximize their championship window. Compare that to sitting on their hands and doing nothing. What does that say? It says they're okay with mediocrity. It says they don't believe in their roster enough to invest in a real quarterback solution. It says they're willing to let Jamar Chase's prime years slip away while they wait for Burrow to get healthy. The math here is simple. The logic is undeniable. Shadur Sanders to the Cincinnati Bengals makes too much sense not to happen. And if it doesn't happen, then we know exactly what we're dealing with. A league that's more concerned with politics and optics than actually putting the best product on the field. Stick with me because in part 2, I'm going to break down exactly why Shadur is built for this moment, what the Bengals' other options actually look like, and why this move could change the entire landscape of the AFC North. You don't want to miss what I'm about to reveal next? Welcome back. Now let's dig even deeper into why Shadur Sanders isn't just a good option for the Bengals. He's the only option that makes sense if they're serious about competing this year. First, let's talk about what Shadur actually brings to the table, because I feel like people have forgotten just how talented this kid is. During his time at Colorado, Shadur showed NFL-level anticipation, pocket presence, and arm strength. He wasn't just throwing to wide-open receivers, he was making tight window throws, reading defenses pre-snap, and showing the kind of football IQ that usually takes years to develop. And yeah, I know what the critics said. He only looked good because of Dion. He was surrounded by NFL talent. He won't translate to the next level. Well, guess what? Those same critics said the same thing about Joe Burrow before he got to Cincinnati. They said the same thing about Josh Allen. They said the same thing about Patrick Mahomes. Doubters gonna doubt. But talent is talent, and Shadur Sanders has it in spades. Now let's talk about the fit specifically with Cincinnati. This isn't just about plugging any quarterback into the system. The Bengals run an offense that relies heavily on timing routes, vertical passing, and giving playmakers like Jamar Chase opportunities to make plays downfield. That's exactly what Shadur excels at. His deep ball accuracy is elite. His ability to throw receivers open is something you can't teach. And his composure under pressure? It's NFL ready right now. Compare that to Jake Browning. Browning's a smart player. I'll give him that. But smart only gets you so far when you don't have the physical tools to execute at a high level. Can Browning manage a game if the defense plays lights out and the run game is working? Sure. But can he carry an offense when they're down 2 scores in the fourth quarter? Can he make the throws that Burrow makes look easy? The answer is no, and everyone knows it. And here's the thing that's driving me crazy about this whole situation. Shadur is just sitting there in Cleveland. He's on a roster where Deshaun Watson is the starter, and barring injury, he's not getting meaningful snaps. That's not a knock on Shadur. That's just the reality of being a backup. But why should he rot on the bench when there's a team that actually needs him? A team where he could come in, contribute, and potentially start games this season? This is where the NFL's whole system shows its cracks. You've got teams hoarding talent, keeping players on the bench when they could be starting elsewhere. And you've got other teams desperately searching for solutions, signing washed-up veterans or project players from the practice squad. It makes no sense. The Bengals need a quarterback. Shadur needs playing time. This should be the easiest trade in NFL history. But let's talk about what's really at stake here, because it goes beyond just wins and losses. If Shadur comes to Cincinnati and balls out, it completely changes his career trajectory. Suddenly, he's not just Dion's kid who got drafted. He's the guy who stepped into a pressure situation and delivered. He's the guy who kept a playoff team afloat while their franchise quarterback recovered. He's the guy who proved all the doubters wrong. And for the Bengals, if they pass on this opportunity and the season falls apart, how do they explain that to their fans? How do they look Jamar Chase in the eye and say, "Yeah, we could have gotten you a quarterback who can actually throw you the ball, but we decided to roll with Jake Browning instead"? That's a franchise-defining decision, and they better hope they make the right one. Now, I want to address something that I know some of you are thinking. What about the chemistry? What about learning the playbook? Won't it take too long for Shadur to get up to speed? And look, those are fair concerns. But let's be real. NFL offenses aren't that complicated anymore. Most teams run similar concepts. West Coast principles, RPOs, play action. It's all stuff Shadur's seen before. Give him a few weeks of practice reps, and he'll be ready to go. Plus, and this is important, the Bengals don't need him to be Joe Burrow right away. They just need him to be competent. They need someone who can make the routine throws, avoid turnovers, and occasionally make a big play when the opportunity presents itself. That's a much lower bar than people think, and it's absolutely something Shadur can do. Here's another angle that nobody's talking about. What this move would do for Shadur's confidence and development. Right now, he's in Cleveland learning, watching, waiting. That's valuable, sure, but nothing replaces actual game experience. Nothing replaces standing in the pocket with 300-pound defensive linemen bearing down on you. Nothing replaces making reads in real time with the game on the line. If Shadur gets to Cincinnati and earns playing time, that accelerates his development by years. Years. That's the difference between becoming a franchise quarterback and being a career backup. And let's flip this around for a second. What if the Bengals don't make this move and Shadur ends up somewhere else down the road? What if he becomes a star for a division rival? What if he ends up in Pittsburgh or Baltimore and torches Cincinnati twice a year for the next decade? How stupid would the Bengals look then? Yeah, we had the chance to get him when we desperately needed a quarterback, but we passed. That's the kind of decision that gets general managers fired. This is also about respect. Respect for your roster, respect for your fans, and respect for the game. The Bengals have built a championship-caliber roster. They've invested in weapons, they've got a solid defense, and they've created a culture of winning. To let all that go to waste because you're too stubborn or too scared to make a bold move? That's unacceptable. That's how you waste championship windows. That's how you end up with a bunch of what-ifs and if-onlys when you look back on this era. So here's my final take on all of this, and I want you to really think about what I'm about to say. The Cincinnati Bengals have a choice to make. They can either be proactive and go get Shadur Sanders, a talented, young, ready-to-play quarterback who fills an immediate need, or they can sit back, hope for the best with Jake Browning, and pray that Joe Burrow comes back healthy and effective. One of those options gives them a fighting chance. One of those options shows they're serious about winning. One of those options respects the talent they have on that roster and the fans who show up every Sunday. The other option? The other option is settling, and champions don't settle. If this doesn't happen, if we don't see Shadur Sanders in a Bengals uniform, then we have to start asking the uncomfortable questions. Is there something going on behind the scenes? Are teams being told not to trade for him? Is there collusion to keep Shadur exactly where he is? Because from where I'm sitting, this trade makes too much sense not to happen. And if it doesn't, well, we'll have our answer about what's really going on in this league. So that's my take on this entire situation. Shadur Sanders to the Cincinnati Bengals isn't just a good idea. It's the only idea that makes sense if they want to save their season and give themselves a real shot at competing. But I want to hear from you. Do you think the Bengals should pull the trigger on this trade? Do you think Shadur's ready to step in and contribute right away? Or do you think there's something else going on that we're not seeing? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because this conversation is just getting started. And if you made it this far, do me a favor. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video. Because trust me, this story is far from over. And when it breaks, you're going to want to be here first. Until next time, keep it real, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace. You in the next one. Peace.